Hi, I'm Elaine Boddy from the Foodbod Pod, and this is the first of my pod bites. This is one of my shorter podcast episodes, saying hello to you from my kitchen as I mix up some dough. I'm currently making some bowls of dough and some recipes that are going to be shared on my next podcast episode. So I thought I would just have a little chat and talk you through the process as I'm doing it. So one of the recipes that I want to make is my standard sourdough master recipe. So my master recipe, I use 50 grams of starter, 350 grams of water, 500 grams of flour and salt to taste. I don't use a lot of salt in my recipe, I only use a teaspoon, and you can always use more. Now I'm making this dough at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I need to be able to use it probably late morning tomorrow. Now, dough does not have a finite lifespan. You cannot leave it to prove forever and a day because it will overprove. And I want this to be at a perfect point for when I can use it tomorrow. So I've already got my starter and my water in the bowl. And what I've done, I'm just going to tip some flour in as I talk to you. What I've done is use less starter. So one of the ways to control the activity of your dough making is to control or change how much starter you use in the recipe. So if you consider that your starter is the power, it's the power you give your dough. So if you use less, you're giving it, in with the salt, you're giving it less power. I'm just going to stir my dough whilst I talk to you. So I always go in with a big tablespoon first, a big stainless steel tablespoon. And then I get my dough scraper, my bowl scraper, which I'm getting out the cupboard now. So if you consider you give your dough less starter, you give it less power, therefore it will be slower to prove, which is perfect if you need to delay when your dough is going to be ready. And this is a trick I've used many times when I've been making dough for classes or presentations or anything like that. It's also what I recommend when you're making dough during hot weather. So something that we're going to be talking about in the next podcast episode is about making sourdough in the springtime, which is what we're coming into here in the Northern Hemisphere, and the wonderful difference that makes to making sourdough. So this is all going to be a part of that. So I've made my dough. Now I always make my dough in the same order, which doesn't make any difference. I once asked a question in my Facebook group about what order people put their ingredients into the bowl, and I was really surprised because of course you just assume everyone does the same as you do, and they don't. I always go with starter first, then water, then flour, then salt, whereas a lot of other people were using flour first. So of course it makes no difference as long as once it's mixed nicely it does its job. So I've got my first mix of my dough done. That's also how quick it is. And all that's going to happen now is that is going to have a shower cap put on it and left on the side so that it can just start to absorb the water. The flour can start to absorb the water and then it will be easier to work with. So I'm also making a couple of exciting new recipes, especially for the podcast, and we'll see what people think. So we're going to have a couple of interesting sweet loaves going on, and also some focaccia with some nice added ingredients. So we've got more starter going in the bowl, more water, and I'm not going to tell you how much because then it would defeat the object of you listening to the next episode. In goes the water. Now going in now is a special extra ingredient So one of the ways that I produce new recipes, one of the things I love to do in my kitchen is to literally open my cupboards, open my fridge and see what needs using, or see what I fancy throwing in a bowl. And that's where a lot of my recipes have been created, literally here in my kitchen, just chucking stuff together. And I think it's, it's the best way to try and create something new, just see what happens. And because I am able to do this, and it's part of my job, it means that I can play around and come up with recipes and ideas that people might want to try without them wasting flour or ingredients in their kitchen. So this is part of the fun of my job, of what I get to do. So in this special secret new recipe of mine I've got in front of me, I'm pouring in my flour. I've got a whole array of Cotswold flowers in front of me, bags and bags of them. Oh, this smells good. I can tell you this smells good. And if you fancy a little bit of a sneak peek idea, there's some wild garlic in this one. I picked it this morning. So I'm going to grab some of the leaves, which I've very carefully washed. I was given a top tip by Tracy Toner, who's been in a couple of our previous podcast episodes, and she told me to wash it with some bicarbonate of soda in the water and then rinse it all out, which is what I've done. But I have to say, I picked this morning whilst I was walking Bob. Oh, it smells amazing. If you can find wild garlic, it's lovely because it's got such a nice mild flavour. I'm very lucky because there's a patch near where I live where wild garlic grows. I don't think anybody else is aware of it, and it's not where you'd expect, because a lot of wild garlic grows near water, and the wild garlic that I pick is nowhere near a water source. However, it is along the path where a lot of people walk their dogs, which is why you have to make sure you really, really wash it well. So that's me snipping some wild garlic that's going in there. Oh, this smells good. And this is the typical kind of scenario in my kitchen. As my husband and son would tell you, I end up with bowls and bowls in front of me and all sorts of things going on. And then the magic elves come along, and by the time anybody else enters my kitchen, it's all been tidied up. But I think this is the fun stuff for me, is just getting different ingredients, getting some bowls on the go, and seeing what I can create. So we've got some really aromatic stuff going on here. I'm going to give that another mix up. And if you ever fancy trying adding different ingredients to your dough and you don't really know where to start or what kind of quantities to go with, I've got in my Sourdough Whisperer book, there is a list there of the kind of maximum quantities of things I would add to some dough if you're adding from the beginning. But also you can just use my recipes as a starting point, because these have all been tried and tested, these recipes, not just by me but by my bakers all over the world who've given them a go, and you can use them as your starting point. So if you're wanting to add seeds, or you're wanting to add nuts, you're wanting to add cheese, or whatever you fancy adding, you can use my recipes as your starting point. The same with grains and things like that. And then you can start to push the boundaries and see if there's more that you want to add or how you want to play with it, and keep notes. I will be saying this a lot during this podcast season, because in this season we're going to be focusing on sourdough a lot. Always take notes. I've still got all of the notebooks, little annotations from all of the doughs that I've made from all of my previous 3 books and the new one that I've just written. So I've got endless notes and things to refer back to. And I think that's how you create your own recipe book. That's how you create your own best versions of things. You know, start with my recipes as your starting point. And if you fancy being a little bit adventurous or trying something a bit different, just give it a go. Chuck it together and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? If you've ended up with a dough that you think is a bit loose and floppy and it's not going to hold its shape, then put it in a loaf pan. Shape it for a sandwich loaf, put it in a loaf pan and bake it that way. If you've got something that's even sloppier than that, use it to make some focaccia. Just plop it into an oiled pan and let it prove again and bake it as focaccia. So nothing should ever go to waste. Never ever throw out some dough. Because you've put all that hard work into it, why would you throw it out? That's always what I say. So that's the second one on the go. Now, in this bowl is going to be one of the sweeter doughs. So this is going to be quite experimental, and this has got a really fun ingredient in it. Now this is going to be a heavy dough, so it doesn't matter with this one if I'm using my standard full amount of starter, because this is going to be a heavy dough, so it's going to be fine. It's a slow prove anyway. This is me opening the secret ingredient, which I hope people are going to enjoy. I hope David's going to enjoy, because David is going to be here tomorrow trying these as we film. And that's basically what we do when we're filming. We're here in my kitchen chatting and talking it through and basically bringing you exactly what's happening at the time. So in goes the secret ingredient. I hope you're going to love this when you listen to it and you give it a go, because it's a goodie. I tried this one and I sent it to work with my husband, because the people at his workplace tend to be my testers, and it was given a very big thumbs up, hence why I am making it again. So there's a little bit of extra something going in there. Let's hope that you like this one. So we're going to give it a big stir, and then flour and a couple of other extra things are going in there. So this is me beavering away, bringing you some different ideas, and the recipes that we're going to share here are going to be just for the podcast. I might give you a little bit of a taste of the kind of creativity and things that I do in my kitchen. So for now, I'm going to say cheerio. Thank you for listening to the first of my pod bites. If you like it, let me know. If you'd like to hear a bit more of me randomly moving things around my kitchen and chatting to you as I put things together, then please let us know. David and I are always keen to hear what our listeners think, because, you know, we come up with the ideas and we hope we get it right. But if anybody would like to give us any feedback, please do, whether you want to email me, Elaine at foodbodsourdough.com, or use the contact form or the contact option on the podcast or on our website. We'd always love to hear from you. So I am going to continue mixing and look forward to sharing the outcome. That's it from me for now. So I've been Elaine Boddy, and this was the first of my pod bites. Find us at the Foodbod Pod. Until next time.